Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to Busari and everyone from the class of International Business Class A. Today we are from Group 3. My name is Shebrian Satriani, and here are my friends, Jessica and also Vita Adela. Today we are going to present the chapter of 18, which talks about the global marketing and research and development. Okay, let's get started. Next. Okay, here are the table of contents for our presentation today. The first, we will talk about products. The second, we will talk about distributions. The third one, we will talk about promotions. The fourth one, we will talk about pricing strategy. And the last one, we'll be talking about globalizations. Next. First of all, we will talk about product attributes. Here are the two main topics, the market segmentations and product attributes. Next. Let's first talk about market segmentations. So, what is market segmentation itself? Market segmentations refers to identifying distinct group of consumer whose purchasing behavior differs from other important ways. Markets can be segmented in numerous ways. The first one may be categorized into the geography. The second might be the demography, which comes from sex, age, income, race, education level, and many more. And then also social cultural factors, which refers to social class, values, religion, and also lifestyle choice. And the last one is from the psychological factors, which is personality. So, market segmentations implies that firms often have to adjust their marketing mix from segment to segments in order to optimize their to optimize the fit between the purchasing behavior of consumers in a given segment and the marketing mix. So the goal is to maximizing sales to that segment from design of products, the pricing strategy, the distribution channels, even the choice of communication strategies. Usually in designing market segmentations for foreign countries, international business face two main issues. The first one is difference between structure of market segments, and the second is existence of segments that transcend national borders. Next. Okay, we will talk about the first problem, which is the difference between countries in the structure of market segments. So, what must international business do? Because we know that different countries may have a significant difference from one another, then firm may have to develop a unique marketing mix in order to appeal to the purchasing behavior of a certain segment in a given countries. For example, here in China, there's a group that came of age during China cultural revolutions. That group have a specific criteria. They tend to be highly sensitive, and they also respond negatively to the new products. What are the implications for international business? The implication is that the firm, in order to be able to acquire that segment, need to customize their marketing mix in order to address the unique values and purchasing behavior of the group. Next. Okay, in contrast, the existence of the market segment that transcend national borders actually enhance the ability of a firm to view the global marketplace as a single entity. So, firm can pursue a global strategy and selling a standardized product, and instead using the same marketing mix in variety of national markets. Okay, next we will talk about the product attributes. Okay, product attributes means that products need sell well. Products that sell well actually is when the attributes and the price match the consumer needs. So, for example, here, a BMW car could sell their product well because they are known to be familiar to people with high needs for luxury, quality, and performance, and precisely because BMW could build those attributes into their cars. If consumer needs were the same at everywhere, a firm could simply sell the same product worldwide. But here, firm ability to sell are constricted by each of these issues. The first one is the cultural difference. So the important implications here is especially the impact of these traditions. So in the marketing strategy itself, for example, hamburgers that are made from ham do not sell well in Islamic countries. Why? Because the consumption of ham is actually forbidden in the country itself. That's why it implies the need of multinational firms to adjust their product attributes according to the difference that exists. The second is from the economic development. This usually categorized into the highly developed versus less developed countries. So usually in the high developed countries, their people actually prefers product with high attributes instead of simple products. Why? Because they think they can actually purchase them. They can actually pay for them. They are willing to pay more for products that have additional features. On the other hand, people in the underdeveloped countries usually demanded products that are more basic, and they are not willing more to pay more to pay. And then the last is the product and technological standards. So different government mandated product standards can rule out the mass productions and marketing of standards products. And it's also impact into the constraint of globalizations of markets. Next. Okay, after talking about the market segmentation and also product attributes, we will talk about distribution strategy. Next. Okay, distribution strategy itself is one of the marketing mix element that stands for delivering the products to the consumer. So the way the product is delivered to the final consumer is actually determined by the firm's entry strategy. The figure here on the right side, we can see that this is the typical distribution system consisting of channel that includes their manufacturer, and then there's also the wholesale distributor and a retailer. If the firm decided to, if a firm inside of a country or domestic is decided to sell directly to the consumer, it could also sell directly to the retailer or the wholesaler. Same with the firm that manufacture outside the country. However, if the firm outside the country want to sell from their import agents, they could also do that. So they sell to the import agent, and then they will deal with the wholesale distributor, retailer, or the consumers. The four main difference in determining distribution strategy actually are impacted through four factors. First is the retail concentrations, the channel length, the channel exclusivity, and the channel quality. In some countries, the first one, the criteria, which is retail concentrations, the retail system is very concentrated, but it is also could be fragmented in others. So in a concentrated retail system, a few retailers could supply most of the market. But in a fragmented retail system, is one in which there are many retailers, but no one has a major share in the market. Many of these differences are actually rooted in the history and the traditions of the country itself. This is resulting to the tendency for greater retail concentrations in developed countries and tendency for fragmented retail in many developing countries. Okay, the next one is the channel length. It actually refers to the number of intermediaries that exist between the producers to the final consumer. If it sells directly, then it's a short channel. But if it's went through to the distributor and then went into the retailers, then it could be the long channel. The most important determinant here is the degree to which the retail system is fragmented. If it's fragmented, it's usually promote the growth of the channel like itself. And then there's the third one is actually about the channel exclusivity. So this occurs because retailers tend to prefer to carry the products of a more established manufacturer than the one that are actually unknown and could be gambling on the products. For example, here, the country of Japan have a very exclusive system. So it's actually hard for people that wants to determine their distribution strategy. And the last one is actually talking about the channel quality. So the channel quality here says that it's actually refers to the expertise, competencies, and also skills of retailer to sell, and also support the product of international business. Okay, next. Okay, now we are talking about how to choose a distribution strategy. So, in order to choose the right distribution strategies, a firm needs to consider the relative cost and also benefit of each alternatives, which depends on the four factors we already talked about: the retail concentrations, the channel length, the channel exclusivity, and the channel quality. Because we know each intermediary could add up its own markup to their own benefits, then there is generally a critical link between the channel length, the final selling price, and also the firm profit margins. So if the longer the channel, usually there will be a greater markup, and then the price will also get higher. But some firm may want to actually prevent that by operating with lower profit margin or maybe a shorter channel. But we must know that there are actually its own advantage and disadvantage of using a shorter or a longer channel. If we are using the longer channel, the benefit it could cut the selling cost when the retail sector is very fragmented and it's a huge market access. And then if we talk about the factors from the factors of channel quality, if its channel quality is poor, then a firm should consider what step it could take to upgrade the quality of the channel itself, maybe including establishing its own distribution channel. So at the end, in choosing a distribution strategy, firm must know the relative cost itself and the benefits of each alternatives, depending on the four factors. That is all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so next is my part. So I'm Jessica and we'll try to explain the communication strategy. So in this communication strategy, I will try to explain barriers of the communication, whether to use push or pull strategy, and the last thing is about the global advertising. Okay, next. So the first thing that we should know before we dive into the communication strategy, we should know what are the communication barriers. So there are three communication barriers. The first thing is cultural differences, and the second is source and country of origin effect, and the last thing is the noise level. Okay, next. So the first part is the cultural differences. We actually really familiar with these cultural differences, and uh, for a simple example is the horn finger picture that I put on the left of the presentation. In America or even in Indonesia, we might know it as the rock on symbol, but in the other countries such as Italy, Brazil, and Spain, it is signaling to our friend that their partner is cheating on them. And it is that is the simple example. Then we may move on to the more complex example. So there are Italy Italian clothing retailer called Benetton. It had it have a campaign named the Unity of Colors, and this ad. Actually, I have to explain this ad. So this ad is about a black woman, try to breastfeeding the white babies. This ad somehow in the France it has won the award in France, but on the US this ads is banned because as we know there are a dark history in the United States about the racial segregation, and this topic is so sensitive in the US, so that the ads is banned in the US. And the fact that I have to crop the whole advert the whole advertising is another example of the cultural differences, because it's not appropriate to show all the advertising here in Indonesia. Okay, and it is the example of cultural differences might affect the communication of international business. So how to handle this? We can handle the cultural differences by developing a cultural literacy and using local advertising company that knows the local culture better than us. Okay, boleh di next. The next thing that I want to discuss is about the source and country of origin effect. We first we have to know the definition first. So the source effect is um, uh, so the source effect occur when the receiver of the message evaluate the message on the basis of the status of image of the sender. As we can see, I illustrate this by a meme on the right side of the presentation. So it's a meme when we put put the made in Germany label, we tend to attract more consumer because consumer thinks that our product has a higher quality than we put the made in China label because the people tend to think that the made in China label is associated with the low quality. The question is this search effect is bad? Actually, it's might be bad and it might be good. For the example of the Germany example, it can be a good example. It can it can help you attract more consumer, but like the made in China, it is a bad example. It can uh, push the consumer away from our company. So, how to resolve the bad or negative effects of this search effect? We should de-emphasizing our foreign origins. For example, when British Petroleum acquired U.S. Mobil Oil, it changed its name into BP and removing the British. And it's not removing the British though. It also simplified into BP because British Petroleum doesn't want to put the British on the American market. Okay, the next. So the next thing is about noise level. The noise itself is noise referred to the amount of another message competing for a potential customer attention, and this varies across country. What is the implication of noise in the international business? So the more firm is competing for a customer attention, the higher the noise level is. So the implication for international business is uh, uh, if we want to find the if we want to choose a country as our new market target, we should see the competition environment in that country. Um, are they a lot of similar product like us, or are they are not a similar product like us? By so we can reduce the noise level of our communication. Okay, next. Next. So, in communication strategy, there are two kind of communication strategy. The first is the push strategy, and the second is the pull strategy. The push strategy is a strategy emphasize personal sellings rather than mass media advertising in the promotional mix, and the second is pull strategy. Is a strategy that depends more on mass media advertising to communicate the marketing message to potential customer, and a push strategy is more like a product demonstration rather than only a mass media advertising. Okay, next. So the question is, when we should use the push strategy or the pull strategy? There are three considerations for us to consider when to use push or pull communication strategy. The first thing is what is our product type and customer sophistication, and the second is how long our channel, and the third is the media availability. Next. So we should use push strategy when our product is a new product and a more complex product, because we have to demonstrate the how to use the product. And the second is when the distribution channels are short. This is because we have to demonstrate the product, so we don't want a long channel to demonstrate the product because it will waste our energy. And the last is when a few print or electronic media are available. We should use a pull strategy when our product is a product for consumer goods. By consumer goods, I mean is a product is more simple than and a product that we use on our daily basis, like shampoo or body wash. And the next thing that we should consider is when our distribution channels are long, we tend to use a pull strategy. And the last thing is when there is sufficient print and electronic media are available to carry the marketing message, we should choose the pull strategy. Okay, next. Talking about the global advertising, there is actually a debate running around the global advertising is whether to use standardized advertising or not. So I will try to explain what is standardized advertising. So standardized advertising is when you use one campaign or one ad uh, to all to all of the country. So the advertising is the same in every country, and uh, some people support it because it has a lower cost only um, because it only produced once. And the second concern is that we concern that the creative talent is scarce, and the last thing is project a single brand image to avoid confusion caused by local campaigns. This means when we have different ads in the different country, our consumer tend to be confused because they because there are a lot of advertising about our products. Okay, so the next things that I will try to explain is the argument that against the standardized advertising. As we discussed earlier, there is cultural differences among the countries. What works for our one country might not work in another country. So we should reconsider this cultural differences before we apply standardized advertising. And the second thing is the advertising regulation across the country is different. One advertising might be legal in one country, and another advertising might not be legal in one country. Referring to my example before, the Benetton advertising, I think Benetton advertising will be banned in Indonesia because it is too vulgar for me and for Indonesian consumer to see. So it's the simple example though. We can use the standardized. We can use both standardized and localized advertising, just like what Nokia did in their campaign. 1001 reasons to have a Nokia imaging phone is so to explain its Nokia ads that the phone is traveling around the world, so it have a local aspect, every country aspect in its campaign, but it's delivering one message. Okay, next. So next, I will talk about pricing strategy, but I will only explain a bit of them. So I will explain about the price discrimination and strategic pricing. Okay, next. So what is the price discrimination? Price discrimination exists whenever a consumer in different countries are charged different prices for the same product or for slightly different variation of the product. In what condition we can apply the price discrimination? The first thing is the firm must be able to keep its national market separate. Uh, by this, we mean that we should prioritize our home country needs first before the other country needs. Okay, and the second thing is for a profitable price discrimination, we should uh, I'm sorry, for a profitable price discriminations, we should have a different price elasticity of demand in different countries. Okay, next. So there are three kind of strategic pricing. The first thing is the predatory pricing. The second is experience curve pricings. But we have to be careful because these two strategic pricing, predatory pricing and experience curve pricings, might violate anti-dumping policy. And the last thing is the multi-point pricing. Next. So I will explain the predatory pricing. Predatory pricing is the use of price as a competitive weapon to drive weaker competition out of the national market. So it's basically we produce the product that is so cheap that the competition can product because can make it because they are lack of resources. When we try to imply this predatory pricing, we should take a note that for a such pricing strategy to work, the firm must normally have a profitable position in another national market. For example, if we are operating in Indonesia, then we should have our company in Japan to subsidize our market in Indonesia if we are trying to monopolize Indonesia market. So it's the last part of my presentation, and the next presentation will be delivered by my friend Vita Adela.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. So I will continue the presentations about the pricing strategy. The next strategy is multi-point pricing, which is reverse to the fact that a firm's pricing strategy in one market may have an impact on its competitor pricing strategy in another market. Aggressive pricing in one market may get a competitive response from a competitor in another market. For example, Fuji launched an aggressive competitive attack against Kodak in the US company market in 1997 by cutting price on their product by 50%. This price cutting resulted in a 28% increase in shipments of Fuji color film, while Kodak shipments dropped by 11%. But the Kodak didn't want to start price discounting in its largest and most profitable market, so Kodak's response was to aggressively cut price in Fuji's largest market, which is in Japan. This strategic response recognized the interdependence between Kodak and Fuji and the fact that they compete against each other in many different nations. So, pricing decisions around the world need to be centrally monitored. Next, please. The next is the experience curve strategy. This strategy is based on profit effects and economies of scale because aggressive pricing together with aggressive promotion and advertising may rapidly raise accumulated sales volume and so drive production down the experience curve. Firms at the bottom of the experience curve have a cost advantage over those at the top. Many companies implementing an international experience curve pricing strategy will price low across the board in order to increase global sales volume as quickly as possible, even if this means that they accepting big losses at first. Such a company believes that after moving down the experience curve for several years, it will be profitable and have a cost advantage over its less aggressive competitors. Next. So the next is regulatory influence in prices. Regulatory measures are in place to protect traders or sellers both at home and abroad who may be disadvantaged in terms of price discriminations and other pricing strategies. There are two existing regulations, namely anti-dumping regulations and competition policies. So the first is anti-dumping regulations. The dumping occurs when foreign goods are sold at a lower price than the domestic goods. As a result of the existence of cheaper foreign goods on the market, the local sellers or traders may feel disadvantaged. So, to avoid this, the government must form an anti-dumping regulations by setting a floor under export prices and limit a firm's ability to pursue the strategic pricing. Besides that, because most anti-dumping cases involve a lot of terminology, it's possible that a company's ability to engage in price discriminations could be challenged as well. And the second is competition policy. So this policy is formed to limit the price a firm can charge in a given country to avoid the price discrimination or to restrict the monopoly practice. For example, in one case, a Swiss company, Hoffmann-La Roche, had a monopoly on their supply of their products. The company was investigated by the British Monopolies and Mergers Commissions, and they found that the company was overcharging for its products and ordered the company to reduce its price by 40%. So that the company maintained unsuccessfully that it was merely price discrimination. Next, please. So the next is configuring marketing mix. A firm might vary aspects of its marketing mix from country to country to take into account local differences, such as cultures, economic conditions, competitive conditions, product and technical standards, distribution system, government regulations, and others. The differences may require variation in product attributes, distribution strategy, communication strategy, and pricing strategy. And the cumulative effect of these factors makes it rare for a firm to adopt the same marketing mix worldwide. For example, if we take one point of marketing mix, which is product, for example, in Japan, McDonald's doesn't sell rice, but they sell rice as the carbos. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, McDonald's sells the rice as the carbos because most people in Indonesia make rice as their staple food. However, there are often significant opportunities for standardizations along one or more elements of the marketing mix. And firms may find that it is possible to standardize their global advertising message or core products attributes. And also, they may find it possible to customize their distribution and pricing strategies to take the advantage of local differences. Next, please. So the next we were talking about globalization. Next. Why is new product development important? In today's world, competition is as much about technological innovation as anything else. The pace of technological change has accelerated since the industrial revolutions in the 18th century, and it continues to do so today. The result has been a dramatic shortening of product life cycles, and in order to face that trend, the firm's today priority is to make product innovations to satisfy their consumer needs. To do that, the firms need to build close link between R&D, marketing, and manufacturing. For example, Netflix start in one sebelumnya bisa. For example, the Netflix started in 1997 as a DVD mail rental business, and then in 2007, the company shifted its business model and decided to go digital with the introduction of streaming media. Because the team looks for ideas to increase member engagement, and then the customers can now access a wide range of movies, TV series, and original Netflix content for an affordable and no commitment monthly fee. Next, please. So the next is the location of R&D. The ideas for new products are stimulated by the interactions of scientific research, demand conditions, and the competitive conditions. Other things being equal, the rate of new product development seems to be greater in countries where the more money is spent on basic and applied research and development, underlying demand is strong, consumers are affluent, and competition is intense. So, the basic and applied research and development discovers new technologies and then commercialize them. The strong demand and affluent consumers create a potential market for new products. And then the firms compete hard to beat their competitors and gain potentially huge first mover advantage as a result of successful innovation. Next, please. So the next is integrating R&D, marketing, and production. New product development has a high failure rate, despite the fact that a company that is successful in generating new products might generate high profits. Development of a technology for which demand is limited failure to fully market promising technology, and difficulty to manufacture a new product costs are some of the causes for such high failure rates. So, the tight cross-functional integration between R&D, production, and marketing can help a company to ensure that the product development projects are driven by customer needs. And then new products are designed for ease of manufacture, development costs are kept in check, and time to market is minimized. So the integration between R&D and production can help a company design products with manufacturing requirements in mind. And then designing manufacturing can lower costs and increase product quality. So the integrating R&D and production can also help to lower development costs and speed the products to market. Next, please. So the next is why are cross-functional teams is important. So one way to achieve the cross-functional integration is to establish cross-functional product development teams composed of representatives of R&D, marketing, and productions. Because these functions may be located in different countries, the team will sometimes have a multinational membership. So the team should be led by a heavyweight project manager who has high status within the organizations and who has the power and authority required to get the financial and human resource the team needs to succeed. Second, the team should be composed of at least one member from each key functions. The team members should have a number of attributes, including an ability to contribute functional expertise, and then high standing within their functions, and a willingness to share responsibility for team results. And the third is the team members should physically be in one location, if possible, to create a sense of togetherness and to facilitate the communication. And then the solution is to transfer key individuals to one location for the durations of a product development project. And the fourth is the team should have a clear plan and clear goals regarding critical development milestones and development budgets. The team should have incentive to attain those goals, such as receiving pay bonus when major development milestones are hit. And the last is each team needs to develop its own process for communications and conflict resolutions. Next, please. And the last is building global R&D capabilities. Because commercializations may require different versions of a new product to be produced for multiple nations, the requirement to integrate R&D and marketing to effectively commercialize new technology creates unique challenge in international business. To do this, the firm must build close link between its R&D centers and its various country operations. Okay, next. So the next we will discuss about our case study.
Okay, first we will talk about the first questions, which is how would you categorize P&G product development and marketing strategy toward Japan in the 70s and 80s? What are the advantages of this strategy and what were the drawbacks? Next. Next. Okay. Yeah. First of all, we would actually categorize the P&G marketing strategy in the 70s and 80s as a missed strategy. Why? Because they know what their customer need in general, but they forgot to actually consider the cultural factors in the new market they want to expand, which is Japan. Okay, next. Okay, so during the 70s and 80s, strategy that P&G implemented to introduce their products are actually done without considering the cultural diversity between both countries. The advantage of this strategy itself, it might be efficient. Why? Because they won't have to do market research that much, and At that time, P&G could actually gain the market shares of 80s on the very first time, but in the end of the 80s, their product had been tremendously declined to 8% because they don't actually do a market research and they don't actually try to menyesuaikan dengan market di sana. And the drawback itself is that the strategy might be effective at the very start for the short term, but it might be not efficient and effective in the long term because at that time the consumers will actually demand for a product that actually match their needs. That's why P&G has then decided to differentiate the products, and after noticing it's not working in the market, next my partner will actually tells you the example itself.
So there are two the kind of fails that we want to discuss in this PAG case. So the first thing is the commercial fail. So as the article on the Thunderbird, P&G was right about Japanese consumers wanting a disposable diapers, but it was wrong about how the diapers were delivered. Japanese parents were stumped by this strange sight of a stork delivering diapers. Stork is a bird that bring the baby in the Western folklore. And as PNG later learned, the Western folklore of storks delivering babies simply does not exist in Japan. Instead, Japanese folklore tells of a newborn arriving from a giant peach floating down the river. Uh, um, as we can see in this commercial, in this PNG commercial, it is failed to know what is more familiar with Japanese parents. What are their folklore? What are the folklore that the Japanese parents are grow up with? So there is a miscommunication in this commercial because the Japanese parents are not familiar with stork and they are more familiar with the baby in the peach. Okay, next. Actually, I want to apologize because I forgot to turn on my camera because I have a really bad connection and I haven't studied in the first place, and I want to apologize it now. So the next thing that I will discuss is about the product development. Why two kind of product that PNG made is the detergent and diapers is fail on the Japanese market. So the first thing we want to discuss is the detergent. So there is a detergent that P&G made called Cheer. Cheer is works in all temperature and produce a lot of bubble. At least that was that what they promoted in the US, but in the Japanese people wash their clothes using cold water and add fabric softener, so Cheer doesn't produce a lot of bubble as promised in their commercial. And the second product fail is the diapers. P&G diapers was too big for Japanese baby, but in diaper size and the packaging. Uh, while family in Japan tend to live in a smaller place than the Western do, so small packaging, as a small and more compact packaging is preferred in Japan, like rather than a packaging that is too bulky or too big because they want to save space in their home. Okay, next.
So the second question is how would you characterize the strategy since the early 90s, and what are the advantages of the strategy and what are the potential drawbacks? Next. So the answer is the PNG learned from their past mistakes with diapers and detergents that met unrealistically high US requirements in the 90s. The product localizations was also applied by P&G, which delegate more marketing and product development work to teams in Japan. And then P&G was successful in understanding the demands of its Japanese market, creating product to fulfill these needs, and conducting suitable marketing until it gained an 18% of market share. So the benefit of this strategy is P&G will have a better understanding of consumers' characteristics, will be able to match consumer expectations, and will obtain a higher market share. And then companies must also keep up with the local trends such as culture, way of life, and how to mingle with the community. As a result, data that is constantly correct and up to date is required in this strategy. So, the drawbacks are the existence of old and inaccurate data that has an impact on the product created afterwards, which is not in the line with the target market to be reached. Next.
Okay. So the third question is about which strategy has been more successful and why. So our answer is the 1990. Since PNG in the 1990 know what their consumer needs very well after doing some research. The improvement of PNG market research has shown by PNG developing the product that can clean grease. This is the dish soap, the soap that can clean grease more efficient, knowing that Japanese consumer likes to eat fried food, and of course with a more compact packaging. Okay, next.
Okay, the fourth one is what change do you think PNG has had to make in its organizations and company culture to implement this strategic shift? Next. Okay, we believe that P&G needs to give more responsibility for product development and marketing to its foreign subsidiaries. In this case, is in the Japanese. Why? Because this type of strategy shift require more flexibility in the organizational structure and the control system itself. In addition, it requires a shift in the organization culture to which there is a recognition that actually good ideas can come from everywhere. In this example, we believe that maybe P&G could have a research and development site in Japan if they don't have it now, and hire more Japanese workers at the Japanese subsidiaries itself in order to be able to understand the market and the culture at the country itself. And since US and Japan are very diverse in making business, PNG might also have to make adjustment to adapt the culture of both countries to meet the halfway. Thank you.
And the last question is what does PNG's experience teach us about the argumentation that consumer taste and preference across nations are converging and global markets are becoming more homogeneous? Next. So, the PNG's products failed to respond to Japanese consumer preference for how to use detergents and how to use the diapers. This implies that even if consumer taste and preference have narrowed or become more homogeneous, the firm of or the business must still have to adjust for the slight differences. And then the consumer's requirements are determined by existing culture, as is widely unknown, and each country has its own culture, which change frequently. However, the firm should investigate local implementation more, as each community group has its unique set of requirements. Okay, next. It's all from us. Thank you for the attentions and thank you for listening.